A very successful webinar that we held a few weeks back, the first of a series of webinars in partnership with Microsoft. This is the second of the series, and we are seeing a number of you who are joining us for the second time. We hope you will continue, and we hope that you will find this quite useful in the next 3 hours that you spend with us. Of course, you know, as the National School of Government, we are focused a lot on building the capacity of the state amongst public servants. It's therefore important for us as we move into the digital era to also build the capabilities when it comes to digital transformation. Please allow me to introduce to you the facilitators for the session this afternoon, Mr. Peter Rao, who will cover the session on the AI fluency, and Mr. Selo Mofokeng will deal with cybersecurity. So these are the two anchors of the sessions for the afternoon, and we hope that you will be able to join us throughout the session. We do have a Q&A option available. Please type in your questions, any concerns you may have, any clarity-seeking questions. Both Peter and Selo are going to try as far as possible to respond to those issues. On behalf of the Principal of the National School of Government, allow me to introduce Ms. Pindile Mkwanazi, the Deputy Director General for Learning and Professional Development, who will officially open the session, and we will then take off with Peter. Thank you very much, colleagues, and enjoy the webinar with us.
Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to all participants in this webinar on AI fluency and cybersecurity session. Your interest and attendance this afternoon clearly indicate that we are immersing ourselves in the management and leadership in artificial intelligence, particularly in the public sector across different levels. I would also like to extend a special word of welcome to our colleagues from Microsoft, and in particular our webinar facilitators, Peter Rao and Selo Mofokeng. This is quite a pivotal moment for us as the National School of Government as we embrace this relationship with Microsoft. You may recall that at the Microsoft Investment and AI Skilling Initiative held on the 6th of March, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the launch of the National AI Skilling Initiative, which will focus on providing AI skills training for public servants. From the previous session, we have seen an enormous interest from the participants on the use of AI that demonstrate that the passion that people have on this technology. We have put time for Q&A on this program, as Dino has mentioned, to ensure that your needs are covered. We hope you'll enjoy and be empowered. One of the key strategic thrusts for us is to build digital capabilities among our public servants. As we all know, the apex priority for this medium-term period is to grow the economy and create jobs. We therefore are keen to build digital and AI skills that can contribute to economic growth and job creation. Finally, the NSG is one of the fastest growing schools on the African continent and globally. This growth is due to our education and training offerings. We have been expanding to all of the state, the institutional operational leaders, and the private sector. We are already providing training to other countries on our continent, and we are growing numbers of global partners. The webinar today is the second of the series of AI-related webinars to be delivered by Microsoft, and we trust that you'll be able to participate in them. Today's webinar focuses more on AI, fluency, and cybersecurity in the digital era. The importance of cybersecurity in the fourth industrial revolution era cannot be emphasized enough. Public servants need to be abreast of the changing dynamics in the digital era and know how to protect themselves from unauthorized users. The proliferation of AI use accelerates the cyber attacks. Thus, the public servant needs to ensure they are aware of the security measures that need to take place. I hope that you'll find this webinar insightful and educating as we work towards building a capable, ethical, and developmental state. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that word of welcome, DDG Mkwanazi. Peter, over to you. You're muted, Peter.
Yes, thank you so much to the School of Government and to everybody who has joined us this afternoon. It's really an honor to speak to the delegates that have all these levels of experience. So I'm just going to switch over and start off with my presentation, which is going to show us more about the topic at hand for today. So for my topic, I've basically prepared a presentation which is going to talk about the whole concept of AI fluency. And we deliver this to you as a Microsoft official partner at the Net Campus Group. And the first thing that people always ask me is, what on earth is AI fluency? So the term AI fluency with this modern day AI approach is basically the ability of us as human individuals to work more effectively, more efficiently, and ethically with safety within these merging technologies where we now start seeing human and AI interaction, and also in many cases cooperation and collaboration, because the tools of AI is just that. It's a tool. It's not something that a lot of people have to fear. And although people have some doubts about AI, I personally don't see it as something that is going to be threatening. Now, as for a little bit about myself, with regards to the training, I have been involved in IT training now for the last 38 years. As from May this year, it will go into 39 years. So I started off in the 1986 era, more or less, with MS-DOS version 2. And from there, we've seen how Windows has basically evolved into what we have today. We know that, for example, Windows 10 will be retiring in October for most users. And from there, we're awaiting whatever the new version of Windows is going to be called from Microsoft. Now, I've participated in 29 different career paths, and it's been very, very interesting for me to see how people are starting to flock towards AI in general. And for me, MCT has been a pivotal thing with the sense of training people, the Microsoft certified trainer skills that Microsoft started putting together and enhancing since those early years. As a Microsoft certified professional as well, I like providing technology and knowledge to young learners especially, but also to the more seasoned people like ourselves who are in the upper echelons of our experience and also our age, as with the gray little highlights that one can notice. I see myself very much, as I think most people in IT nowadays, as a lifelong learner with my three very important key values that I hold dearly, being education, both for myself as a lifelong learner, being the student and the teacher, because I think those two go together. I love traveling because it's always very fascinating for me to see how people basically around the world have the same needs and how technology can meet those basic needs and get to a solution that benefits everybody. And I think that is very much a key point that a lot of people in IT don't always sort of see. They think it's just them doing something that has a very small ripple effect. But if you actually do a global view and you pull back and you look at what you are achieving when you share knowledge and when you empower people, this is a great thing to be involved in. And as a subject matter expert, I personally believe that various technologies can combine together to give us better solutions to the problems that we have in the here and in the now in our environment. Now, as for the overview of the session, we're going to look at, first of all, what AI is doing. And this to me is a great, great example. So if I go and I basically...
Today, right now, you have more power at your fingertips than entire generations that came before you. Think about that. That's what technology really is. It's possibility, it's adaptability, it's capability. But in the end, it's only a tool. What's a hammer without a person who swings it? It's not about what technology can do, it's about what you can do with it. You're the voice, and it's the microphone. When you're the artist, it's the paintbrush. We are living in the future we always dreamed of. We have mixed reality that changes how we see the world, and AI empowering us to change the world we see. You have more power at your fingertips than entire generations that came before you. So here's the question: what will you do with it?
So for me personally, in that video that you've just seen as people attending this wonderful talk, you basically, in a nutshell, heard my beliefs for technology and for AI's role in technology. Now, although a lot of people speak about AI as if it is this thing from the future that is still going to impact our life, they actually overlook the fact that it is in the here and in the now. And in this session, I would like to be able to provide you with the tools to help you understand the strategic importance of AI, to develop these different implementation plans that you might already be using or perhaps considering in your environment for your different situations and the different solutions that you're trying to attain. Finally, we'll look at leveraging AI for explosive growth, because it is a catalyst. And once the growth starts, there's very little that can actually take one back. And like we know, progress is inevitable. Change is one of the few constants in life. And as long as we can understand that and enhance it and use it, I think that we have a very, very bright future ahead of ourselves as individuals on this planet in this here and now moment. Now, taking the concept further, although people's historical view about AI is maybe somehow distorted, a lot of people only started hearing about AI in sort of the public domain in the 2019 era, when in November, an organization called OpenAI launched ChatGPT, which has been an evolutionary tool in making the public aware. And it very, very quickly, within 2 months, became the most downloaded tool that has ever been on the internet. And it surpassed the usage of previous technologies that came before it. Now, with the competitive market that we know that technology is, a lot of other people also jumped on the bandwagon. And very soon we started seeing their projects also being revealed to the public. I'm thinking, for example, here of tools like DALL-E. I'm thinking of tools like, for example, your Llama, which is also an AI tool, or Elon Musk's X's Grok 3, which is the latest AI model. We've also seen a lot of news recently with countries like China developing their own AI, despite restrictions on them with technology in their countries, limiting their ability to get access to graphic cards that have built-in AI in them from vendors like NVIDIA and AMD, because there's been these restrictions. And DeepSeek has been a very, very big sort of shake up to the market of AI since the whole launch. Now let's have a look at the artificial intelligence concept as a whole. A lot of people know that AI stands for artificial intelligence, but When we think about intelligence, we know that that is a human faculty. We typically, as humans, and also amongst other animals and mammals especially, have the ability to think and reason. But us as humans, being at the apex of that whole structure, have a greater ability to reason because we can also have emotions, which is something that not all other animals share with us on this planet. Although we also fall under the mammal classification biologically, we are at the edge of progress. And this is something that is really, really awesome. Now, as for what AI is, the fundamental function of AI is to help us create what we call intelligent machines. Machines that can basically mimic the way in which we as humans think, and it can simulate, or even in some instances surpass our human capabilities in such tasks as learning and adapting, problem solving, reasoning and decision making, and in general, understanding and interacting with our actual world. Now, when it comes to learning and adapting, that has been one of the key factors that has helped humanity survive from the beginning of time as hunter-gatherers. And then from the hunter-gatherer, we became the people that could work the land. And from there, we've seen us developing skills like the invention of the wheel. We've seen the invention of writing. We've seen the invention of numeracy, where we could then use numbers to express ourselves. And then mathematics grew from that into a very, very powerful science, which is still very high in demand and which will continue to be in demand, as would science in the next few generations to come, because it's not just going to go away. Another thing that we pride ourselves on is problem solving in general. Now, problem solving is something that from a very young age, any human being has within themselves. It's intrinsically built into our DNA. When you have a little toddler, age 2, still not fully capable of full conversation, maybe the odd word here and there, being able to stand, being able to wobble, and very much when they start walking, they don't learn to walk, they learn to run, being able to, when they faced with something, they can reason and figure out how to, for example, take a triangular shape and put it into a triangular hole into one of those little play sets of theirs. And this helps them then get to this concept of problem solving. When it comes to reasoning and decision making, this is something where we as humans really, really, really excel. So for us, we often have the ability, when somebody comes to us with an opposing viewpoint, we can argue for or against it, as anybody who's done debate would know. And from that, especially when we are in roles of leadership, we can use our ability to make decisions. And sometimes, although it seems like an insignificant decision, it impacts hundreds and sometimes even thousands or millions of other people through a simple decision. Very similar to the butterfly effect, where the saying is always that the flapping of a butterfly's wings can cause a tornado somewhere else on the planet. So it's not to that extent, but that's a good example how a small action, the flow of air, can be very minuscule in scale, or it can be huge and devastating. And then the other aspect of AI is the ability to understand with regards to how things work from what it gets through its senses, which I'll use quotes for, because we as humans have eyes and ears. AI typically will use sensors like cameras to see what it is seeing, and where it will be able to use microphones to hear what is happening around it. And with the integration of this into tools like AI machines, like robotics, like if we explore the X company from Elon Musk's ability to build these wonderful robots now, the two fields are starting to merge. And they're saying that within the next 5 years, we'll start seeing assistants in the form of robots working with us side by side as humans in the home, doing those tasks that we do not necessarily like. So for me, if that machine knows how to iron, I think that it is a blessing already. As for the concept of different AI types, currently in our progress with AI, we're sitting in this narrow AI band that we see here at the top. So currently, the AI focuses on specific tasks, such as being able to recognize faces. We know that during the COVID pandemic, that our cell phones with Face ID in the beginning were not that great at seeing us and unlocking the screen when we had those masks on. But then, as they did some updates to the software, which is a form of AI, it would then take a picture of your face each time that it sees you. So when you had your mask on, it swapped to other options, like, for example, using the LiDAR, which is a low-frequency radar, in the phone camera sensors to actually see through our skins and identify ourselves to the actual system to grant us access. And overseas, especially now for access control, a lot of companies are starting to rely on facial recognition and biometrics, which is the capturing of human systems, which is, for example, fingerprints, voice maybe, face itself with measurements, as a way to store an image which then gets compared with what the camera sees. And if those two matches, it would then open up the whole access route to that individual. If it doesn't find them, it will stay locked up. Now, the new phase where we're starting to go into is the generative AI side. This is the future of AI. So currently, we know AI. We're going to shift soon into artificial general intelligence, what we call AGI. And then probably within a period of time, which won't be that long after AGI is achieved, we'll start seeing artificial super intelligence, or ASI. And that is all part of the generative part of AI. So this is the future where it poses human level intelligence with the ability to learn and apply knowledge in any area. So already our AI is quite capable. I know, for example, that ChatGPT 5 will be launching before the end of this year, and that they're currently training the ChatGPT version 7. Now I can see that somebody is asking me, the session is being live streamed on the actual session and can be accessed from YouTube. That is excellent. So I'm just closing that. I'm just reacting to the messages that
In 1950, Alan Turing proposed the Turing test. That same year, Isaac Asimov proposed the 3 laws of robotics. In 1951, the first AI-based program was written. In 1955, the first self-learning game-playing program was created. In 1959, the MIT AI Lab is set up. In 1961, the first robot is introduced into GM's assembly line. 1964 saw the first demo of an AI program which understands natural language. In 1965, the first chatbot, Eliza, was invented. In 1974, the first autonomous vehicle is created at Stanford AI Lab. In 1989, Carnegie Mellon creates the first autonomous vehicle using a neural network. In 1997, IBM Deep Blue beats Garry Kasparov at chess. In 1999, Sony introduces IBO. That same year, the MIT AI Lab's first emotional AI is demonstrated. In 2004, DARPA introduces the first autonomous vehicle challenge. In 2009, Google starts building a self-driving car. In 2010, Narrative Science's AI demonstrates the ability to write reports. In 2011, IBM Watson beats Jeopardy champions. That same year, Siri, Google Now, and Cortana become mainstream. In 2015, Elon Musk and others announce a $1 billion donation to OpenAI. In 2016, Google's DeepMind defeats Korean AlphaGo champion. In 2016, Stanford issues the AI 100 report. In 2016, UC Berkeley launches the Center for Human Compatible Artificial Intelligence. As you can see, AI is not new. But the advances we are making are progressing at an exponential pace, leveraging our ever faster computing power, the explosion of digital data, and the speed of communication infrastructure. In some ways, the commercialization era of AI has just begun, and it will profoundly affect our world as we know it. Similarly, or possibly more profoundly, than the way the internet and mobile phones have done so before.
So I hope that that was an interesting introduction, ladies and gentlemen, to the history of AI. So although we know about it from more or less 2019 as consumers, it has been around from the 1950s already. And all these different leaps that we're currently seeing has been made possible because of the way in which technology has basically evolved over the last 25 years, especially because nowadays the growth graphs no longer take a linear route. They actually grow very strongly into a upwards sort of hyperbole where the cycle goes straight up almost. And in some instances, when it's very fast, that actual graph is leaning backwards to the extent that things are changing. Now, as for a generative AI, this can be used for systems when we want to predict things like outcomes, when we want to detect entities or classify documents. So instead of us as humans having to go through the whole process ourselves, this becomes easier when we then use the AI as a tool to go and ease our access. Now, Gen AI, for example, is the term that people will throw around for this generative AI, and it can create content such as images, videos, and text, which we will demonstrate in the demo after this very brief introduction. Machine learning is the ability of machines to be able to be fed lots and lots of information, which it then uses to build up a sort of mind map, if one wants to call it that, which it can then draw upon to access data and make sense out of the data that is provided for it. So any person here who has in their workspace access to Microsoft's Azure platform will know that in Azure platform, you have machine learning models and AI models, which can help you build your own unique models if what is currently available does not meet your needs. As for deep learning, here with this, it's a subset of machine learning inspired by the structure of the human brain. We know, for example, that our left brain hemisphere is used very much for our creative and artistic ability, whereas our right brain is the one that is very much the logical brain. So when people say I'm very logical or I'm very creative, that tells you which one is the more dominant brain that is currently active. As for the deep learning, DL, deep learning is simply the subset of that mimics that pattern. and builds its own neural networks. So in our physical brain, we have the two hemispheres. Then we've got the little brain connections, which we call synapses. And in the brain, because of the biochemical structure of the brain, there is little electrical signals that come from the tips of those brain synapses. And when there is a firing of a synapse and it gets repeated again and again and again, a neural connection is made, what we then as humans would call a memory. And we know that as human beings, we've got two types of memory, long-term and short-term. And as we grow older, typically our long-term memory would be great, but our short-term memory tends to slip, especially if one's not very careful with one's diet. As for the technologies itself, when we talk about natural language processing, this is the ability of AI to understand spoken communication and also to be able to understand typed commands like it would be understood by a human. This was one of the greatest things in 2019, when in November we saw ChatGPT 1.0, when you could say to the system, write me a letter, and it would do so in a few seconds without you having to spend time doing that, and then afterwards checking your spelling and grammar. The AI does that automatically for you. And then if you really want to avoid plagiarism, you would take that AI copy and then adapt it to your style of writing. Or you could give a couple of examples of your writing to create what we call base knowledge for your machine learning, which can then be fed in to the system, and it would then learn from your examples of writing and create something with exactly the same style. Now, I don't see this as a threat. I actually find it fascinating. As for computer vision, the ability for machines to see includes the ability to do object detection. For example, in England at the moment, they have speed cameras that can identify whether a car's license is valid or expired, whether a person is on a cell phone while driving, or if they're not looking at the road, are they causing a danger to other users? And it would then automatically give them a ticket. Also, it can do speed enforcement and look for stolen vehicles or vehicles that do not have insurance, because in England, if you don't have insurance, you're not allowed to take your car onto the road. And this is why they typically have a very, very low number of accidents that are fatal, because they do tend to drive a bit more carefully because it's expensive for them to be on the road. As for other things that we can do with computer vision, we have the ability to look at images and ask the artificial intelligence what it is that it sees in there. And then we can also say to it, what would happen, for example, if I've got a picture of balloons with strings that a person is holding, and I go and cut with scissors those strings. And the AI will understand that the balloons will basically fly away because of the training that it has had. So obviously, that was not capable of being done with your ChatGPT version 1s, but only with the later versions. And this is why Microsoft then, when they developed Copilot, decided on going with the OpenAI people's ChatGPT model as the foundation of the Copilot. And they've also invested millions into the systems to get it to where it is now in the form of Copilot. Other things that we can do is video analysis. So for crowds, for example, the police, if they use AI systems, and this is not something that is just in normal civilians' hands, because we've got the POPIA Act, for example, that we all need to honor. They can get a court order to monitor maybe a street, and then they can find criminals in the crowd by watching and monitoring the live video streams of the people that are walking past. And this is helping police close cases and find missing people, especially when it is a child that has been reported missing. In those instances, this is a very useful technology. And then, as I've mentioned before, robotics. The field of robotics includes the designing, building, and operating of robots, often having AI integrated into them so that they become more intelligent and that they can actually then have more human-like behavior and have decision-making capabilities. Now, as for our core technologies, we've got explainable AI. This is one of the things that Microsoft sets as its key goals. You want to, when an AI system gets fed with data and then gives you an output from that, have a way as a data analyst or data scientist to see what processing the AI did to get to that answer. Now, in the beginning, when these AI models were still very fresh to the public, people were all very excited and they thought that AI's word was gospel. But we know that AI is not always factually true. So therefore, we always need to fact check our AI with its outputs that gets generated. So when we have this technique, it makes our AI models more transparent and understandable so that we as humans can make sense of the technology and the way in which it came to a conclusion or a decision. Very much like in mathematics in school, when you were in grade 1 or grade 2, and your teacher said to you, take out your little piece of chalk and your blackboard, write 1 + 1, and then make an equal sign. What is the answer? And then she leaves you as a child to figure out. And then she said, okay, show me your answers. And you would show her. And if you wrote down 2, she would say, well done. Who got other answers? And then the little ones would show their hands. And then she says to them, guys, this is how we add. And then she would take little play blocks and show you again until everybody understood that concept. So you could then explain how addition worked as a human. So this, the one of explainable AI, is very, very similar. Now, for modern day advancements, these are all very important things that needs to be considered. We've got generative AI, where you can tell the model that you're working with, please go and create me an image of a purple flamingo, and it will go and do its best to do that for you. Because you're interacting with it with normal English as your input language, and nowadays also with other languages, it understands your communication style, either verbally or through typing. Computer vision and robotics are used together. And with healthcare and drug discovery, AI is being used to find solutions to diseases that have plagued humankind for generations. As we just saw now, explainable AI, the ability to see how it came to a decision is important. And then last but not least, I think this is one of the most crucial ones, ladies and gentlemen, the ability to do social good. Because AI should be something that uplifts and empowers everybody. It shouldn't be something that discriminates or has a bias. And this is why I think that the laws of AI that they're putting in place legally worldwide is very crucial. to make sure that we use AI responsibly so that you don't have social impact that's negative. Now, here's some of the common things that one might hear about AI. The first one is that AI will take over jobs. Now, that is true in part, but it's also going to, in the long run, create jobs that we have not even envisioned. Your matriculants of the future that are going to pass grade 12 will very soon have jobs that nobody else has had before. And many of them will use AI. And although this saying of the jobs being replaced or taken over by AI might be a misnomer in its description of yes in the beginning, but later it will create more jobs than what it will take, it is more the person who's empowered and knows how to use AI that would be a threat to you in your workplace, because for you, you're not using the tool, so you're not as productive. And when they do KPI measurements, they might find, okay, definitely Peter is not working as hard as maybe Cello is, who's using AI. So I'm just using that as an example. Other people fear that AI is sentient and a threat. Now, since the big public reveal in 2019 of ChatGPT, some big leaders in the IT fields have said AI is going to wipe out humanity and it would be a threat to us. Again, there are safety features being built in, what we in computer terms call a kill switch. We have the same in the military, where if a device is something that can cause harm, you can remotely disable it so that it becomes useless. Same with AI. So it is just a tool and can only do what it is programmed to do. It's like the argument when people say guns kill people. No, a gun cannot kill a person unless it is wielded by a person with good or bad intent. So if you are a policeman and you get shot by the policeman, you were obviously doing something wrong. But if you were a criminal and you're using that same gun, you're now going to harm other people to maybe rob them. So same tool, two different users. The other one is that AI is just for tech companies. So we all think these big conglomerates like Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Google are the people that run this show and that only they use it. No, as AI technology continues to advance, it is very likely to find applications in all the industries that we have around us. Also, there's another one that people have a great concern about, and this is that AI has no ethical concerns. Now, the people who make AI systems, those that actually conform to the AI laws, are making rules and legislation in place that will ensure that AI is used responsibly and ethically in order to avoid unintended consequences. We know sometimes that as humans, we might have the best intentions, but what we get out from our intentions might not be what we want. And Microsoft has this awesome approach where they look at the different aspects of AI tools and they make sure that it has the following key principles in place. They want to focus on the user's value that they get from the use of the tool. They develop the AI tools very responsibly. They also want to democratize AI, putting it into the hands of the people, not just the elite. Productivity and business applications, like when we use Copilot, in Word, in Excel, in PowerPoint, in Outlook. This is very, very powerful because it can take up to 70% of your workload off your shoulder and make you more productive. Then, as Selo is going to talk on the aspect, security and privacy, there's been great advances using AI to protect our network infrastructures and even our computer systems from violation by threat actors, what we typically call hackers. And hackers or threat actors could be both internal and external. So they're not always people from the outside. Sometimes your biggest risks are inside your own organization. Then, cloud and infrastructure is another big focus of Microsoft, because we know that they've invested billions into the Azure cloud service. Amazon has done the same with AWS, as has Oracle with Oracle Cloud. And very soon, we are going to get the first Google data center in Africa, which is amazing because Google is also a competitor in the cloud environment. Last but not least, your customer experience and personalized AI is going to start coming more and more to the fore. As for examples of AI, we can have it in finance. Many banks already use AI in finance, where it can check for fraudulent activities or duplication of transactions. I'm sure that everybody here has experienced it at least once, where you go to a shop on a Saturday morning and it's busy, usually after payday, it's the most busy period, and you tap your card and it goes, but it doesn't process. And then you tap again, and this time the payment goes through. But when you look at your cell phone, it tells you there's been 2 transactions for the same amount at the same time, more or less. And luckily nowadays, it takes an hour for that to be reversed, so you don't get double debited. In the past, people had to wait a whole 3 days to a week to get their money back when this happened. AI can also be used for investment decisions, and it's helping banks automate the different concepts of analyzing investments. Examples for AI in healthcare. Here, medical imaging from organizations like Siemens uses AI to look at X-rays or medical scans from sonar and other medical procedures to then look and diagnose issues that it identifies. And then a human goes and looks with obviously their experience as a specialist and verifies or disclaim the actual finding of the AI. AI can also help personalize medicine, where we know in some instances that a certain type of medication I'm taking might not be as effective on you as an individual, and vice versa. So for you as well, the medication might work, but it won't work on me because of certain genetic makeups. So here AI can find something that works for your DNA. In addition to this, we already have AI-powered robots helping do surgeries. Now, in the 1990s already, we could do remote surgery. The only problem is connection. And when you don't have great connection to these remote operating robots, you might have a delay because the robot might be starting an incision and then the actual connection drops. Now it stops for safety. Then when the network comes back up, it resets and it then starts doing what it did again. So all these things work hand in hand like a spider web, interconnected. In retail, when we've got things like, for example, our cards that we use for loyalty programs, like, for example, I'm just going to use one like Checkers' 60s app. That gives you points and discounts on certain products, but also it helps the shop know who their customers are. And they can then analyze the offerings that's being advertised to you when you have your phone to suit your choices. So if you're vegetarian, for example, those choices will be more based on that, because those are the things that the AI will identify as your key interests. It can also be used by stores for fraud detection. We know about cloned cards and credit cards, and it can help with inventory management, where as stock levels drop, orders are already being placed and the trucks are basically driving over to the shop as that all happens. Then for manufacturing, different industries are using AI and robots for repetitive tasks that we as humans don't like. Humans, in the beginning, when you start learning a new skill, it's fun because it's like new. But after a while, especially if it becomes repetitive, we get bored. We like variety. Otherwise, we don't enjoy what we're doing. And with these systems, they can be used for quality control and then in turn streamline your supply chain and reduce wastage. As for transportation, more and more abroad, we're seeing that there's self-driving taxis with no people in them. You sit as a passenger on the seat, the car comes to you, stops, you get in with a code that gets sent to your cell phone. When you say send, the door opens, you get in, you put your safety belt on, the machine greets you, and it drives you to where you need to go safely. So AI is driving the development of these autonomous vehicles. We know that Tesla currently has the best self-driving system, where it learns by itself in any environment. So you can drop it off in the middle of Hillbrow and it will figure out the city. If you say to it, take me to this place, and through the use of telecommunication and different metrics, it will find you and take you there. It can be used for traffic management, like during peak hours, to synchronize robots so people don't unnecessarily have stop-start traffic, which wastes fuel. And logistics and delivery systems can optimize routes through the use of AI. Now, furthermore, we see...
Get ready for a revelation beyond imagination. We're about to unlock the vault of 2024's most jaw-dropping secrets, 5 groundbreaking AI tools that defy the boundaries of possibility. Witness a future where AI-powered doctors, artists, and assistants work hand in circuit with humans. It's not science fiction, it's science fact, and it's about to reshape your perception of reality. Prepare to have your mind blown as we reveal the technological wonders that lie ahead. Our first mind-blowing AI tool is poised to revolutionize healthcare like never before. Imagine a world where diagnoses are faster and more accurate, where medical professionals are empowered with unprecedented insights. Introducing AI-powered medical imaging, an innovation that's set to transform the field of diagnostics. AI algorithms, fueled by vast datasets and deep learning techniques, are enhancing the accuracy of medical image interpretations. From detecting early signs of diseases to precisely pinpointing areas of concern in scans, AI is acting as a crucial ally for healthcare professionals, ultimately leading to more efficient and effective patient care. It's incredible to think about the impact this technology can have, not only on diagnosis, but also on treatment plans, enabling personalized medicine and improving patient outcomes. Transitioning to the world of creativity, AI is flexing its creative muscles. Get ready to witness AI-generated art that challenges our perception of what's possible. AI-powered creativity tools are pushing the boundaries of imagination. These algorithms analyze vast amounts of artistic styles, historical context, and cultural influences to generate artworks that are truly unique. Artists are using AI as a collaborator, leading to the emergence of new art forms that blur the lines between human and machine-generated creativity. It's fascinating how AI is sparking a new era of artistic expression, fostering a dynamic interplay between technology and the human imagination. Our journey continues with a game-changer in the realm of conversational AI. The days of clunky chatbots are long gone. Say hello to the next generation of AI-powered virtual assistants. Conversational AI has evolved to understand context, emotions, and nuances in human language. These advanced virtual assistants can hold natural and engaging conversations, making them invaluable in customer service, education, and even mental health support. They're becoming companions that listen, respond, and adapt, providing assistance that feels remarkably human. It's astonishing how AI is bridging the gap between human communication and technology, transforming the way we interact with machines. Moving into the world of finance, our fourth AI tool is reshaping the landscape of economic predictions and investment strategies. Brace yourselves for the era of AI-driven financial forecasting. AI's ability to analyze vast amounts of financial data in real time has led to unprecedented accuracy in predicting market trends. From predicting stock price movements to assessing risk factors, AI is equipping investors with powerful tools to make informed decisions. This not only benefits financial institutions, but also individuals looking to manage their investments more effectively. The potential impact of AI on the financial sector is truly staggering, promising a more data-driven and insightful approach to investment. Last but certainly not least, our fifth AI tool takes us to the realm of robotics, where autonomy is the name of the game. Prepare to be amazed by the incredible strides AI has made in creating autonomous systems. AI is the driving force behind autonomous vehicles, drones, and robotic systems that are changing industries like transportation, agriculture, and logistics. These AI-powered machines navigate the world, adapt to changing environments, and perform complex tasks with minimal human intervention. They're not just gadgets, they're a testament to human ingenuity and AI's potential. The integration of AI and robotics is reshaping industries, making them safer, more efficient, and environmentally friendly. And there you have it, our journey through 5 mind-blowing AI tools for 2024. From transforming healthcare and unleashing creative possibilities to revolutionizing communication, finance, and robotics, AI is making its mark across every facet of our lives. These AI tools are a testament to human innovation and the incredible potential of technology to shape our future. As we move forward, it's important to embrace these advancements responsibly, ensuring that the ethical considerations are upheld as AI continues to amaze us. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated on all the astonishing innovations that lie ahead.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that then brings us to some live actual demonstration. Before I do, though, any questions from that introduction to AI? I'm sure you all agree that it's very interesting. That came out at the end of 2024. So this year, when they do a recap at the end of the year for what is expected for next year, it's going to be quite interesting, because we now this year have a lot of agents that are being released where systems can go and do research on a topic for you and then come back with an actual response. So let's then go to some live demonstrations. Now, I'm sure that many of you agree that the typical day in the office works with regards to your actual program on the side here, sitting in Word. This is with Copilot, which is a subscription that one accesses. When you don't have a subscription, Word has the editor tool built into it. Now, what is very nice about it is as soon as you click on the Copilot button, which is here on the right-hand side.
We are not seeing your Word document. We've just got a blank screen. Yeah.
Oh. Let me quickly then, can I then finish the video? Because I think that it might be locked to the video. I just want to finish that video then, because there's only 4 slides left. So I just want to finish this. Is this showing, ladies and gentlemen?
We can see a live demo.
Yes. So let me quickly finish this and then do a presentation to the Word one. So with regards to that, when we get to the conclusion, this is where I'll then give some time for Q&A. And then just from us as NetCampus and myself, Peter Roll, as the person who's doing the webinar, we want to say thank you to everybody for attending this session so far today. And that will then bring us to the end. So we've got a few minutes left. I'm going to close this. I'll say close. And then let me share again so that it shows me my Microsoft Word. So I want to go and do the actual Word document. So I see it has to do it individually. Share. So with regards to Microsoft Word, when we open up and we've got Copilot installed, ladies and gentlemen, we see the icon in the top right. Once we click it, this little menu appears above your actual document. And it tells me here, because it knows who I am, it says, hello, Peter. Here are some ideas that might get you started. How can I more concisely, for example, describe some topic? Then analyze the text in the following and make suggestions on how to improve it. Or list ideas. These are just quick shortcuts that one could use. I can say to it, I would like to write a letter. So I click into the Copilot at the top, and then I say to it, create a business letter. And this is luckily spelling not such an important aspect, so you don't need to worry about your grammar and your spelling being perfect. Most people in South Africa don't have English as their first language. A business letter to asking for further information on courses on offer. Then as soon as I've got that, I can press enter, or I can actually click the little arrow. And it's putting things together. And there I've got a standard letter. Now I can go in and I can very easily fill in these areas. So I can go and say, okay, this would be me. My address, let me say 256 Oak Avenue. And then here I can say at 01 I'm just making up one. I can specify my email address. And then I can add my phone number, which again, I'll just create one. Now let's say that I'm working in an office. I've not had a landline number for a long period of time. I can go 555 5555, just as an example, and the date is going to be today's date. In NetCampus, I can take out this. So maybe I'm not sure about the details, but I can see that it now gives me the following. So it says, dear sir or madam, I'm writing to you to inquire about the courses that NetCampus offers. I'm particularly interested in learning more about the range of subjects available, the structure and the duration of each course, and any prerequisites that might be required for enrollment. So we can see that this one is having a typical spelling warning. Additionally, I would appreciate detailed information regarding the costs associated with the courses and so forth and so forth. And right at the end here, I just go and add my name. So I can just put in here Peter roll. And there is my little business style letter, which I think is quite nice. Now, the editor, which is available in the 3 version as well. If I click on editor, it gives my document a score. At this point, it's 85%. And I can see that it suggests to me that there are possibly some spelling errors. So I'm going to click on it, and it says to me that there's no suggestion for the actual part, but they do suggest that we shorten it to enrollment, for example. So there it fixes it, and we see that it now looks at the document where clarity is still an issue. I can click on it, and I can say to it here that, okay, it's not giving me anything. So nothing is suggested here. And if I click on it, no suggestions, so I can close it. Now the score is 95. And if I look at it further, let's just see, run remaining. Doesn't give me an example of what this might be. So I can go and look at it. I can say, and any prerequisites that may be needed instead of and this time I can format my writing now to be either very formal, which it is, or I can make it professional, or I can make it more casual. So let's say that I know NetCampus already. I can say, change my writing text to casual. Made some small changes there. Now it says there's 3 possible things that need to be actually clarified. So I'm going to say, change that. Then your assistance, your help, and in making decisions regarding doesn't show me any options. I will say go and change this to the word for. My education and professional development. I'm eager to learn. Now my score is already 100. That's perfect. And I can also check for similarity to say to myself, okay, is there anything else that I need to look at in here? So it's going to go online, doesn't find anything that it has found, 0% similar to online. So that should be fine. I can then close Word. So I'm not going to save. I just wanted to demonstrate that. Then I want to share my Excel as well. So I'm just going to open Excel. Then I'm going to say, okay, let me share my screen with Excel. Click a blank document. And again, what I've got now is the ability to quickly generate something. So I'm just going to zoom in and say, okay, I want a name. I want a mark. This is like what we typically did as teachers. And I want to have John, Mary, and Paul. So I'm keeping it very clean. And the mark there is 88. For Mary, it was 75. And for Paul, it was maybe 60. Now, what I can do is I can highlight that information and I can say Copilot. So I click on the Copilot icon and it's now saying to me my autosave is turned off. So let me go and give it a name file, save as, give it the name sample. Now it needs to be in your OneDrive in order for it to work. Now it tells me it's on, so I say to it, okay, got it. Now I can ask it to say, okay, summarize using a pivot table or charts. And there it starts going. And it analyzes the data. It finishes up. And very soon, it gives me an example. So I can basically go and say, okay, add this to my sheet. And again, if I zoom in now, I can see that it went and created for me a format. It told me the mark and it calculated the grand total for me without me having to know my formulas and my functions. I can also go and ask it some questions. So I can ask, who had the highest? And it's quickly looking through it. And it gives me replace into the range of the names with the range of your actual mark. Okay, so if I do this and then ask that question again. Who scored the most? Highest mark. So sometimes the AI does get a little bit confused, but we can see here that from this, it tells me that the highest mark is the one that's now white. So notice those two have been left out, but although I selected all three, so there the 88 is the one that wasn't white after it came to a conclusion. So you can do this in Excel. A very nice option as well is to do this in Outlook. Now, I know if I'm doing something in Outlook, I can maybe use an example of the little notification that I got about today's event. And if I go and I open it up, I can say, you know what, let me close this. Let me go into Outlook itself and let me create a new email. So I'm just going to say create a new email. And in here, I'm going to say, you know what, let me...
So you're not sharing your screen?
Oh, sorry. It's not sharing.
If you go ahead and share your active screen, we'll be able to see everything that you're working on. So you don't have to constantly share. So your active screen will be the first screen that you see.
Oh, that one.
Actually...
Good. There we go. So
yeah.
I just opened up Outlook, ladies and gentlemen. So sorry for that. And then if I go into here, I'm clicking on Copilot on the right, and I can say to it now, help me plan. So when I say this, I can say to it, okay, go and find something. So here I can say, write me a letter to myself. And then in here, AI. And when I click into it, when I click on AI, I can say to it, draft. Now I can say to the actual AI, draft a thank you email to DOD, the Department of Defense. And then I say, okay, submit. There we go. So I've quickly responded with a brand new email. Or if somebody sends me an email, I can, for example, go into something, and let me just use an example for maybe myself, where I can go into the registers, and I can say discard, and then I can say reply. So here, I can say thank Eva. And there, it says, thank you so much. Best regards, Peter. That took me literally a second. And I think that this demonstrates, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of the capability we have. Now, in addition to this, we also have the ability to work inside PowerPoint, where you can say to PowerPoint, please help me find a structure that is visible for me. So if I go in here and I just open a blank PowerPoint, so I hope that that's still visible. I'm going to click on Copilot's button. And as soon as it comes up, I see that I want to create a presentation. So maybe I'm wanting to use something that I already have. Or I can say that I want to create a presentation about. And now here I can say AI in education. When I press enter, it's analyzing, it's getting some data through AI. And then generate slides. So the days of doing this for hours is gone. It adds the titles, it adds the slides. And once it's done, I then will be at the end of my presentation and then be able to hand over to Selo. Almost there. There we go.
Just to alert you to the Q&A, there's a
Yes.
few questions there for you. Thank you.
Okay. Let me have a look then at the Q&A. So I just want to say stop sharing so that I can be back and see what the actual feedback is from the individuals. So if I go into Q&A, thank you. I see I've got some very good questions here. Will you share the presentations? Guys, it will be shared through the YouTube recording that has been made by the department. So I know that it is there. So thank you for that question, Tato. Betty, please, can the presentation be shared? Again, it's the same question, but just by two different people. Then we've got Fabian. I use AI extensively in my work production, such as drafting the actual minutes, reports, and research papers that will then aid me for the principals to make informed decisions. What is needed more is a tool to aid with checking information and ensuring that research can be used that is accurate and effective. Which tools are highly available for us? And this is from Fabian, who's a manager for the office of the HOD for Costa in the Northern Cape. Now, with regards to that, one can do your own machine learning if your IT teams have knowledge of machine learning models where you train it with your specific data. And once that has been trained, you then have a reference of the knowledge base of your own organization. Microsoft is very much about security, as Selo will probably share soon, where they share information between the company itself and keeps it private, because there was a lot of concern with people doing the same thing, but then exposing their AI to models like just OpenAI. So never ever share things that are sensitive directly to an online model. Rather work in a system like Copilot, and then in Copilot, all the things that you work with has to be in your OneDrive. That makes sure that it is secure, but I'm sure Selo is going to point out some things there. Then what is the actual difference between Copilot and Autopilot? Now, Copilot is an AI assistant that works next to you. It's like a best friend. Autopilot is when it does things automatically for you. So let's say you've got a system that is on autopilot. While you typing, as soon as you press enter, it will then look at what you typed and then fill in the rest without you having to interact. So autopilot does things automatically, whereas Copilot, you working and it's assisting you side by side, which is an awesome ability. Then, thank you for the presentation. How safe is AI, and can I use it drafting confidential and sensitive state information? Most definitely you can, Paul. That's a great question. And Salo, I'm sure, is going to touch on the security aspect a little bit more. Then from P. Tsotso, he's saying AI is cutting-edge technology with our country lagging behind. What is needed to catch up? For example, the types of resources, the basic development skills, and so forth. Secondly, what type of legislation should South Africa urgently put in place to basically oversee ethical AI for development and resources? And lastly, with AI, including robotics that require infrastructure, how do we ensure that South Africa participates to create local jobs? Thank you. That's a great question. So 3 very interesting things there. When one partners with the big institutions like Microsoft, they are dedicated to those principles that I shared earlier on. One of them is very much legislation and ethical use. So they will not allow these systems to basically steal your private information. Secondly, with them, the other question that you had, you asked about what do we need? So the first thing we need in South Africa is we need good infrastructure. We need systems like 6G and 7G, which we are lagging behind quite a lot because our 5G is running in 4.5G only, but they're calling it 5G. So we need to set the infrastructures in place. And this is done through international partnerships and investment, because investing in something like this is an investment into our future. Now, I saw a few days ago, quite interestingly, a very wealthy Zimbabwean businessman wants to bring the NVIDIA AI systems that they have in America to Africa. And he wants to invest in South Africa to actually host some of these systems for our continent. And I think this is going to be a great revolution and evolution for us as a company and as an organization and as a country as a whole. Then, with regards to the actual other questions, what is expected for the generation of AI? So for AI, that's an interesting question there, Deliwe. Thank you for this framework. South Africa using the government's ethical utilization. Yes, with it using, it's jumping around. So I've got 7 questions. Number of AI development that have showcased are coming from the United States. Are there any AI developments in South Africa? Yes. So for example, the banks, Standard Bank, Nedbank, and Absa are already using AI. There are call centers that are using AI. The vendors are starting to use AI. So companies like Checkers, companies like Woolworths are using this for their logistics. I know that the transport people, like logistic companies, are using it. So that is very, very good as well. Can we implement robotics in the police station to take down statements from victims? You can have conversational AI. Some banks already have in Europe people going to kiosks that are soundproof so that they don't get distortion. Then they speak to a screen and they think there's a person, but it's actually AI. And the AI then speaks back to them and answers their questions. And yes, you can take statements from it. And yes, you can probably use it if you develop a system to then take note of cases and even open case files and save them digitally, because too many papers make things very easy to disappear. Then which framework? The question around artificial property, how does that work? Okay, so with regards to artificial property, when you share information with an AI system, if it is not in an isolated environment, it might then be exposed to the AI as learning or training data. But with Poppy as well, this is why it's important for countries to actually have these systems in place, because you want to make sure that you answer that thing of, is my personal identifiable information being made known? And you don't want it for people that are vulnerable. For example, your medical records, your credit card information, those things are off limit. There's laws governing it. So one should, when you use it, make sure that you don't break the law. Then which framework in South Africa uses the ethical utilization? Are they using data out there to find a pattern? Yes, like for example, the universities in South Africa are currently training data models on premises. I know that companies like UNISA, for example, have courses on AI, and that they are experimenting with various ways of integrating AI. It, for example, gets used when you submit your work to make sure that you are not copying, plagiarizing, or using AI. There's a system called Turnitin that they use. Then for today, not controversy for the data sovereignty of the country, Microsoft with Azure has two levels of subscription. One is for us as the public, the other one is for government use, and that is specifically to make sure that when you use Microsoft AI, that what is data sovereign stays data sovereign. Then I believe that AI uses information that's already created on the systems. Yes, and my question is around the intellectual property. Now, when people train AI with intellectual property without permission, they are breaking the copyright law. But if you create a document from AI with images, you cannot go and copyright that book with its images as your own work. So there were a couple of cases like this in America where people have claimed to say, but I'm not getting royalties. I wrote this. And then they go and they check and they see, no, it's AI generated. So nobody holds copyright over things that are purely created from AI. But if it uses AI from things that are copyrighted, this is where the nightmare comes in. And this is why some of the AI companies have been sued. So I hope that answers your question, Sipho. Then Nsua, you asking what is the impact of AI on e-hailing industry? So in Europe and America, where they're using it, there's a lot of competition. There they do not have the violent thing towards competition. We see at the moment that, for example, Uber wants to pull out from South Africa because the customers are complaining that the drivers are inflating prices and not sticking to a certain amount of fee for a certain amount of distance. They're making up their own prices and they're shooting themselves in the foot. So very soon, we might just have Bolt in South Africa, and this other one currently is also under a lot of legal pressure. I think it's called Vanatu or something like that. Very weird name. Then the last one there, can I use AI at work without approval? No, not at all. You need to get approval. The department that you work for and your institution must authorize you to use AI, and they must make sure that they use it in an isolated instance where your data is not going to be shared. Some people have used codes from programs that they're doing that has intellectual property for the people they're developing it for, and then it gets leaked onto the AI systems. And there's been court cases. So one has to basically toe the line. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give over to Cello. Thank you so much. And thank you for your amazing questions.
right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you can see my screen. So I'm just going to try and share my screen in a second. Okay, there we go. I think I've just shared my screen. All right. Are we able to see my screen properly, ladies and gents? Is it clear?
It is loading. Yes, please, you may go ahead.
All right. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gents. My name is Silo Mufokeng. I obviously work for NetCampus. It is an honor for me to address you today, especially around the cybersecurity space. Fun fact is Peter and I think I've known Peter for as long as I've been in the IT training space for. I am a Microsoft certified trainer. I also do hold a couple of certifications, and these are strictly for the cybersecurity space as well. So I hold certifications in EC Council, in CompTIA, in Checkpoint. And in particular today, our focus is going to be on the cybersecurity. I mean, if you look at today's fast evolving digital landscape, the cybersecurity is no longer an IT issue. I mean, it's really literally a national imperative, especially when you look at government institutions. A lot of them have become more digitized, and they are facing increasing threats from cyber criminals, from hackers, even from the nation-state actors. So cybersecurity is critical insofar as that is concerned. And if you add cybersecurity and the artificial component on it, I mean, artificial intelligence plays a very, very crucial role in terms of enhancing the cybersecurity defenses. A number of your cybersecurity teams face multiple challenges. I mean, the number or rather the volume of cyber threats that they have to look at on a daily basis. There's millions and millions of emerging threats daily, and they're making that manual detection quite very difficult for your cybersecurity team. So if you look at cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, this complement each other very, very well, because you can then speed up the response in terms of those different types of attacks. And Microsoft in particular has invested quite heavily on AI-driven security solutions. I mean, if you look at the Microsoft Security Copilot, in particular, that is designed for your security teams. If you look at things like your Microsoft Defender, if you look at Sentinel, those are some of the things that we're going to be focusing on today and trying to understand exactly how we can better protect our organizations, but also how we can leverage artificial intelligence to make sure that we speed up the processes or the response to the different types of threats that your organizations will be facing out there. So if you look at the cyber threats, ladies and gentlemen, they're not just about the financial losses anymore. A lot of these financial threats impact on things like national security, they impact on public trust, they impact on the economic stability, and even human lives, essentially. So if you think of the consequences of maybe a ransomware shutting down a national healthcare system, or if you think of a data breach that can possibly expose millions of South Africans' personal information, or even a cyber attack on your critical infrastructure. I mean, we're talking here about things like Eskom or any other essential services. So we as the government of South Africa in particular, we need to make sure that we are at the forefront of being adequately prepared for cyber threats. But also, as the government, we need to make sure that we have the right security policies, we have the right regulations, as well as the workforce skills to defend against the different types of attacks out there. So, cybersecurity, in particular for government, is very, very important. If you look at a number of governments worldwide, They are adopting different types of e-government initiatives. And all of these are meant to make sure that we can be able to enhance the service delivery. So for example, we're talking about your online tax filing at the moment. We're talking about things like digital health records and so on and so forth. All of these are meant to essentially improve the public service accessibility. And there's also efficiency in governance, where government has enrolled a number of automated processes. There's instances where there's digital procurement systems and so on and so forth. But we need to also understand that as the digital systems become more interconnected, they also become a lot more vulnerable to different types of cyber attacks or cyber threats, essentially. I mean, we know that government agencies store sensitive different types of data. We're talking about personal records. We're talking about financial data. We're talking about classified information. And what cyber criminals do a lot of times is they try and target this type of data for exfiltration. So they try and do things like identity theft. They try and do financial fraud, espionage, and so on and so forth. I mean, I think sometime around 2021, if I remember correctly, the Department of Justice did suffer some sort of a ransomware attack where a number of critical systems were shut down for a couple of weeks, which impacted service delivery. So things like that, so ransomware attacks, they are quite crucial because they can encrypt your government data. You can have instances where, in most cases, they delay some of the crucial services. I mean, healthcare services, they are able to disrupt law enforcement operations. And in some instances, they are also able to shut down essential infrastructure, water, electricity, and so on and so forth. In fact, if I remember correctly, I think just before, I don't know if it was just before COVID, around 2019, I think City Power was, excuse me, hit by a ransomware, which essentially disrupted the electrical supply or electricity supply, but more importantly, it affected the billing system of the organization as well. So those are some of the things that we need to think of when we start thinking of cybersecurity, especially when it comes to the government. But also, we have to give credit to our South African government as well. I mean, the government has done a number of things to strengthen the cybersecurity resilience. They have established a number of security, or in particular cybersecurity laws and regulations. One of the most popular laws that the government has established was the POPIA. I mean, as we know, POPIA ensures that, or the POPIA Act ensures that the protection of citizens is at the topmost of every single organization that holds our citizens' data. And also, that piece of legislation is also very, very important because it requires the government agencies to also implement security measures around the security of the data. And as we know, non-compliance leads to very severe penalties and reputational damage as well. So the POPI Act is one of those important laws that the government has established. But also, if we remember correctly, there's the Cyber Crimes Act of 2021, which was, and again, this was very, very important because the Cyber Crimes Act of 2021 defines the Cyber Crimes Act as cyber crimes, like your hacking, your fraud, your cyber extortions, and so on and so forth. And before the Cyber Crime Act came into play, for years and years and years, cyber crimes were essentially treated like any other crime out there, whereby when there was a crime that was reported to the law enforcement agencies, especially SAPs, the crime itself will be classified as any other crime. But the problem with that is that it really created a bit of a headache for law enforcement agencies, because you did not necessarily have the crime itself allocated to people that specifically understand the crime, that literally know the terminologies around the crime itself. I mean, if you think about it, if you were to sit now in front of a judge, or even, and this is before the Cyber Crimes Act, if you were to sit in front of a judge, a magistrate, or even cops, and you started talking about IP addresses, you started talking about firewalls, inbound rules, outbound rules, etc., etc. Those type of things don't necessarily make sense to people that don't work with this on daily basis. And one of the nice things about the Cyber Crimes Act is that by virtue of being able to classify those cyber crimes exactly as they are, whether it's hacking or fraud, then you have specialized personnel or law enforcement personnel that specifically focuses on this type of crimes, which essentially speeds up the process of attending to these crimes in terms of the punishment, in terms of the execution of the law. So it is quite important for that. So we have to give it to the government for the strides that they made in terms of creating some of these different laws and regulations. I'm sure there's a lot more of this, but I thought maybe I should just mention the POPI Act as well as the Cyber Crimes Act that literally sprung into my head as I was preparing for this session. But also, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at an organization like Microsoft, I mean, Microsoft is a leader in cybersecurity. They have invested over, I think, over 20 billion rands, I mean, 20 billion US dollars rather, in just the security research and development. And they have a number of advanced security solutions and programs that can help our professionals within our different departments with the latest skills in threat management, in identity protection, and in security architecture. So my training in particular is around that. My training is in so far as what type of security solutions and training programs that Microsoft have that can equip our personnel, especially in the cybersecurity space, to make sure that they are prepared for the different type of threats that are out there, but also to make sure that they can protect the security architecture of the different departments that they are in. And we need to remember, ladies and gentlemen, that one of the biggest factors that contributes to cybersecurity issues, one of the biggest loopholes insofar as cybersecurity is concerned for a lot of organizations, it is definitely the human factor. A lot of cybersecurity attacks, a lot of cyber criminals exploit human errors. You know, they make those employees the weakest link in cybersecurity. In fact, it has been reported that over 90% of cybersecurity incidents are always linked to a human error or negligence of some sort. And here we're talking about things like your weak passwords. We're talking about things like phishing and so on and so forth. I do a number of trainings for a number of government departments, pretty much almost on a monthly basis. And I know some of the issues that come, especially when it comes to, and I'm sure a lot of colleagues can relate to this in the class, especially when it comes to things like weak passwords, passwords that are shared amongst computers, passwords that are written down, and things like that. There's a lot of issues around that. And if we get to a point where we understand that is essentially one of the biggest loopholes when it comes to cybersecurity incidents, we can make some headways in making sure that we can alleviate and reduce some of this type of attacks. If you look at South Africa as a whole, I think there's a study, just cannot remember who this study was done for. I think I saw something like this in IT Web, where they were saying that phishing attacks in South Africa increased by 220%, especially towards the government officials. So as government, it is important that we make sure that our employees are trained to recognize cyber threats and also to respond effectively to different types of cyber threats. And this training can range from anything as basic as making sure that users create strong passwords, but also avoiding phishing scams by making sure that they are a lot more vigilant when they are opening emails, when they are clicking on hyperlinks that may be within those emails, but also when they are on the internet, being a lot more careful about the different sites that they go into and so on and so forth. So those type of training for our government employees is very, very important. Like I already mentioned, it's just a basic cyber hygiene. There's also training around incident response. So again, this is where we can go into how do we as different government departments can react in case of a cyber attack, and also to some more of the more advanced cybersecurity training, where we basically teach IT professionals in our different government institutions on how to respond to different type of threats in their organizations. So without strong cybersecurity policies, we as a South African, I'm talking about the South African government in particular, but also just organizations as well. Without all of these cybersecurity policies and trainings, we are at the risk of intelligence leaks. We are at the risk of espionage, cyber security attacks that may disrupt your national defense systems. But also one of the biggest risks that we face without proper training, without proper security policies in place, is the economic instability due to things like financial frauds, etc., etc. But also as citizens of the country, citizens expect government services to be secure. So any data breaches to our government departments or our government institution essentially damage the public confidence that we do have in the e-government systems. So it is very, very important that the next couple of slides that I'm going to focus on, we pay a bit more attention to them, because they talk about the different types of courses, but within those courses, we are talking about the different types of solutions that Microsoft has specifically for organizations and our government out there to ensure that they can be able to protect their assets, they can be able to protect their systems, but also they can also be able to protect our citizens' data. So that's basically what my presentation is going to be about. It's going to be about the different types of courses that Microsoft offers. And essentially, when you are doing those courses, what type of information, what type of systems, what type of tools and applications does Microsoft offer training on that can enable the organization to protect themselves? And one of those first courses I thought we should talk about is something called the Security Operations Analyst. Now, I just need to also mention in advance that there is a normal training, a one-day course that we offer at NetCampus that focuses on security fundamentals. It's called the SC900. So that particular course is a one-day course. It just basically gives you an introduction to what is covered in some of these courses that I'm going to be talking to you about today. So I didn't really include it here because it's quite basic. It's a one-day course, and all it does essentially, and it is important, I need to mention that, but all it does is to introduce you to what is going to be covered in some of the more advanced courses in the Microsoft cybersecurity space. What is it that you need to look forward into learning, and so on and so forth. So the Security Operations Analyst is basically one of the most important offerings by Microsoft that helps your professionals in the different government departments to learn skills around monitoring, around detecting, around investigating and responding to different types of threats in their organizations using different types of Microsoft security solutions. So this is more crucial for government institutions, for public services, to make sure that our assets remain protected from different type of cyber threats out there, from data breaches, as well as espionage. So if you have, and so we're talking here for a number of different types of people. I mean, security teams, your cyber security specialists, your SOC team members, your incident response teams, all of those people, this is the type of training that's geared towards addressing them. So what should we look forward to when we are doing this course? So there's a number of key competencies that I thought maybe I should focus on, just to introduce to you a little bit about what is it that you will be learning when you are attending some of this, especially when you're attending the operations analyst. One of the important competencies within this course is the threat intelligence and detection. And this is done utilizing the Microsoft Defender. So when we talk about the threat intelligence, and what is it that you'll learn, your security guys will learn in this particular training, they're basically going to be learning on how to collect, on how to analyze and respond to different type of cyber threats that are out there. But also they are going to learn skills around identifying suspicious activities before they can even become a full blown out attack in your environment. And more importantly, in collaboration with the Defender, there is a tool called Sentinel. Sentinel is a SIEM tool that Microsoft offers for the protection of your organization. So one of the things that they're going to be learning within this course, they're going to basically learn how to utilize Sentinel in order to collect security logs from different sources, so that they can be able to correlate the data and identify different type of threats. So what Sentinel does is, and we'll talk about it in the next slide, it's capable of collecting logs from different types of sources. And here we're talking about, it doesn't necessarily have to be Microsoft devices or Microsoft tools. So you can have a third-party vendor tools and applications or security systems that you have deployed in your organization to protect your organizations. What Sentinel has got is that it's got something called connectors. So you've got different connectors for different third-party applications, different third-party tools and systems, where they are able to, or Sentinel is able to collect different logs from those particular devices. And then those logs can then be correlated into Sentinel, where Sentinel can be able to utilize built-in machine learning and artificial intelligence to try and identify threats from it. Now, think of an example of, or an instance where maybe a group of government employees receive phishing mails asking them to reset their login credentials. Without proper attention, without really scrutinizing some of these emails, a lot of times our people or employees will just click without paying, without even giving it a second thought. Now, the functionality of Microsoft Defender 365, and in particular, if you look at Defender for Office 365, is to make sure that it can detect the malicious email patterns. It can be able to detect some of these malicious URLs that are embedded within those emails that your users are going to receive. And once there is a phishing attempt that the Defender for Office 365 picks up, it's going to block it, and effectively it will also enable your appropriate security teams, so it will allow them to, or it will alert them so that they know that there is a phishing attempt that's been detected by the system. So those are some of the things that we are going to be learning in this particular course. Or you may have instances where maybe somebody from, I'm going to give you an example, maybe from the Department of Home Affairs, we start noticing that there's multiple login attempts from unrecognized locations or unfamiliar locations. What we can utilize with Sentinel is to basically analyze the login patterns. And again, Sentinel does this automatically. So it will analyze the login patterns, and then it will block out any unauthorized attempts to log into any of the systems that your organization has. So you have different tools, like I already mentioned, Defender for Office 365. There's also Defender for Cloud, which is very, very important for protecting your cloud resources, any resources that you may be running within your Microsoft Azure cloud. But also if you have resources that are not necessarily sitting in the Microsoft cloud environment, they may be sitting in other third-party cloud providers that your organization is utilizing, the Defender for Cloud is able to protect it. I mean, you sometimes have instances where employees download malicious files, and they are not aware that in the background, some of those files are capable of encrypting government records. So in this particular instance, one of the things that you're going to be learning within the SC900 course is to utilize the Defender for Endpoint to make sure that we can be able to isolate any infected devices, just so that we can prevent that malware from spreading. But also, by utilizing things like the Defender for Endpoint, we are ensuring that government services remain operational and malware impact is minimized throughout the organization. So that's just one of the things that we can be able to look forward to learning. I mean, threat intelligence, like I already mentioned, is very, very important. The other one that is important, ladies and gentlemen, is around the log and data analysis. And this is going to be a huge important thing around the Sentinel. So with Sentinel, what we can be able to do as security teams, and what your security teams will be able to learn from this course, is that they can be able to learn how to analyze logs from the firewalls, from network devices, from different endpoints, and so on and so forth. So for example, let's say maybe we want to detect an insider threats. I think my colleague Peter talked about it a little bit earlier onwards, that one of the things that is very, very important and that you can also utilize artificial intelligence for is to be able to pick up things like insider threats. So Microsoft Sentinel has artificial intelligence built onto it. So with that particular artificial intelligence built onto it, what we can be able to do is to detect, let's say maybe a government employees or a company employees tries to copy sensitive files onto their personal USBs or something like that. What Sentinel will do is it will detect this as an abnormal data movement, and it will then trigger an alert which can then be investigated and followed up by the appropriate teams. And this will ensure that any data exfiltration is prevented from happening. And also, one of the things that you can be able to utilize through your Sentinel, or be able to do with Sentinel, is to pick up, like I already mentioned slightly earlier onwards, things like login attempts from foreign countries. Whenever there is maybe an unusual login attempt to government websites or to government systems, but from foreign countries that are specifically targeting those websites, Sentinel is capable of correlating threat intelligence data to reveal some of those different types of coordinated attacks. So in this way, your cybersecurity teams are able to harden your login security to prevent any unauthorized access to your systems. And also, by the way, I'm just going to pull quickly. I'm just going to bring this to your view. So this is basically what Sentinel looks like, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not really going to go into detail of the inner workings of what Sentinel works, or how does it work. But what it does, one of the things that it does more efficiently is hunting. So this component here of Sentinel, ladies and gentlemen, essentially helps us to proactively search for hidden threats before they can even cause damage to your organization. So what you can do here is essentially utilize Sentinel to proactively search for any threats that may have not necessarily manifested themselves in your organizations, but there's already things like your indicators of compromise or some of the things that indicates that your organization may be going through an attack of some sort. So you can proactively hunt for some of those different type of threats. Now, if I were to put this into perspective, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just gonna quickly just bring you or just show you overall the different types of concepts that you're going to learn within this particular course. So you're going to focus, number one, on Defender for Office 365. Like I already mentioned, the Defender for Office 365 is very, very important for protecting your emails, protecting Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive. We're able to protect these different areas from phishing, from malware, from even the business email compromise. And again, one of the biggest things, important things that we need to understand, especially with your 365 Defender, ladies and gentlemen, as we talk about some of these concepts, is that it uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to detect phishing emails. It's capable of scanning for malicious content on any links that you may have on your emails or even attachments. But even better, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that you will learn, especially when you are focusing on the Defender for Office 365, is how to do an attack simulation in your organization. So with your attack simulation, we can use Office 365 to train employees against different types of phishing attacks, where we are able to simulate the attacks and we observe those users who do not necessarily pay attention in terms of how they respond to some of the phishing or campaign emails that could be sending through. And then we can then have automated remediation for training. So we can recommend them to attend specific trainings depending on the type of phishing campaigns that we are able to run. So there's the Defender for Office 365. There's the Defender for IoT, specifically for those environments that have industrial control systems. So we are able to monitor and detect threats without disrupting operations. There's also Defender for Endpoint. This is specifically to protect your Windows virtual machine, so your Windows machines, your Linuxes, your Android devices, your iOS devices, and so on and so forth. And one of the things that the Defender for Endpoint does effectively is to use the behavioral analytics and artificial intelligence to detect any type of advanced attacks that are out there. And then once it's picked all of this out, it's capable of isolating those compromised devices to prevent something called lateral movement that we also teach in some of these courses. So you've got your Defender for Cloud, you've got Defender for identity protection, there's the Defender for Cloud apps, and more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, if you look here, Sentinel is at the core of everything, ladies and gentlemen. So what Sentinel does is it will collect and analyze security logs from all of these different areas here. It will collect and analyze security logs from the Defender for Office 365, Defender for Cloud apps, Defender for Identity, and so on and so forth. So it will collect them, and then it will aggregate those logs from those different environments. And then from there, it can be able to do threat investigations. It can be able to pick up if there's any particular threats that your organizations or your organization is facing. So all it does is to collect, detect, and respond to any security incidents that may be coming from all of these different areas here. But like I already mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, not only does Sentinel is capable, not only is it capable of collecting logs from these different areas, it has what we call connectors. So if I were to go back into the portal and then I go to data connectors here, I just want to show you that you can also be able to collect logs from different types of systems and environment. They don't necessarily have to be Microsoft applications. Just gonna see if let me see if I can be able to pick those up here. They should be displayed in the next few minutes. There we go. So as you can see, you can be able to collect logs from the Amazon Web Services, Cisco, SAP, AgileSec, Alibaba. So there's multiple different connectors because we and Microsoft very much understands that your organizations utilize different types of systems, different types of applications and tools in order to protect your organizations. And because of that, those connectors that you find in Sentinel are able to collect those logs from those different devices, and then those logs can be able to be analyzed within Sentinel. And again, remember that Sentinel uses AI-driven analytics. So it is that AI-driven analytics that is utilized to detect any advanced threats that your organizations may be facing. And also, one of the most important things that we have touched on a little bit is to also detect and prevent any internal threats. For example, things like your data leaks, as well as intellectual property theft. So what Sentinel will do, including insider risk management that you find in the Defender, is to monitor things like your file transfers, is to monitor your email activities, is to monitor your user behavior. So what it then does is it will use artificial intelligence to detect any unusual data access or sharing patterns, and then it can use what we call risk-based policies to block users from copying any sensitive files and things like that. So there's a number of things that are very, very important that anyone that attends this particular course that will be able to learn from here. So Sentinel is at the core of everything, ladies and gentlemen. That is under the security operations analyst. And then the other course that is important, ladies and gentlemen, is the identity and access administrator. So this particular course focuses specifically, if we were to be more specific towards the government, where vast amounts of sensitive citizen data is stored, where national records, where classified informations are stored, this particular course is very, very important. It focuses on managing and securing identities, access policies, as well as authentication mechanisms, specifically utilizing the Active Directory, whether this is your on-premises Active Directory or your Azure Active Directory, which is now known as your Entra ID. So this particular training, ladies and gentlemen, is very, very important for everyone in our environment, in our workplaces, who is responsible for protecting our sensitive systems, and anyone that's responsible for ensuring that only authorized personnel have got access to the appropriate data, but also more importantly, to enforce regulatory compliance. So in my focus, I just want to talk about the different key competencies here. And in particular, what we want to focus on is identity management. Now, when you look at identity is, ladies and gentlemen, at the core of every single thing that we do in our workplaces. So for example, for you to access any systems, any applications, any tools that you use on a daily basis, you utilize identity to be able to do that. So things like your username and password are very, very important. But we have also since learned over the years that username and a password are not enough to secure any environment or any data for that matter. So this is where one of the things that we are going to be learning about in this particular course is around multi-factor authentication as well as conditional access. Some of us may be familiar with multi-factor authentication. This is where we have an additional form of verification, whether it's through passwords, OTPs, fingerprints, or security questions, and so on and so forth. And all of this, ladies and gentlemen, the multi-factor authentication is very, very important because it will prevent unauthorized access to government databases, but also it will reduce those password-based attacks, your phishing, your credential stuffing, and so on and so forth. The fact that you have multi-factor authentication in place, as an organization, you are able to have an additional layer of verification that will even protect yourself against your things like insider threats. So think of instances where maybe government officials, and I've had this happening multiple times with some of the few colleagues that I've done training for, where maybe a government official receives an email that asks them to log into a fake government portal, and from that fake government portal, that's where a phishing attack will happen. So if you have multi-factor authentication enabled, attackers cannot access the account without that second factor authentication in place. And also, we are able to make sure that whenever, and this is something that can be done through, there's an element, there's a component of this course called conditional access, where we utilize what we call signals. Signals are utilized to dictate, depending on a person's login attempts. We are going to use different type of signals. So signals could be the device itself. So are you logging in from a company issued device? Are you logging in from that HP notebook that we issued you in the organization? Are you logging in from a different device altogether? But that is a signal to decide whether we are going to give you access to a application or resource in the organization. So it's the device, it's the location, it's the applications, the data that you are accessing yourself, but it can also be able to, it can be multiple things. But what you do with conditional access is you basically say, and this is what you're going to learn in here, you basically create a condition to say, if a person logs in from a non-government issued device, so if the government gave them an HP notebook and then they are logging in from a Lenovo notebook, what should happen? So you've got a couple of options there. So as administrators, through this course, you can learn whether you should be able to block those people, or you choose not to block those people, but they need to reset their password, or they need to provide an additional factor authentication. So they need to provide an OTP, they need to answer a security question, or whatever the case may be. There's multiple things that they can be able to do here. So those are some of the things that we are going to be learning in here. We'll also talk about access management for applications. Like I already mentioned, authentication and access are very, very important. But also we are also going to cover here identity governance strategy here. So again, this is where we're going to learn about something called the privileged access management. So with the privileged access management, we are basically going to learn how to limit access to highly privileged accounts, to make sure that we limit their use. We ensure that they operate under strict security controls, because we want to minimize the risk of insider threats, but also we want to minimize the risk of privilege misuse, whereby somebody may have administrator privileges, but they are misusing those privileges as well. I mean, for example, you don't want a junior administrator to access classified government records because we utilize the privileged access management policies to restrict that access based on the role as well as the security clearance as well. And sometimes it's not just about junior administrators. You may have a disgruntled employees who may attempt to delete sensitive records. So what we can do with a privileged access management, we can enforce something called just-in-time access, meaning access will be explicitly requested and approved before any high privilege action can be taken. So you're not going to have somebody just logging in and have access to sensitive data. They'll have to put in a request, and then that request must be approved, and there has to be justification why that particular privilege or why that particular privilege is being activated. So those are some of the things that you are going to be learning when you are attending some of these courses. And more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, I think the COVID pandemic forced a number of organizations to go through a rapid digital transformation. If you think of how COVID impacted organizations, overnight, companies had to suddenly change the way they operate. And this sudden change exposed a number of organizations to security issues. A lot of companies became vulnerable to cyber security attacks, to data breaches, and probably the biggest one was ransomware. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, before COVID, as organizations, we relied more on office-based security. This is basically what we relied on. So we relied on firewalls, we relied on internal networks, we relied on your intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems to make sure that we can be able to protect our employees, we can be able to protect our devices, and so on and so forth. And because of COVID, that had to change, because all of a sudden, employees are now working from home. And then because they are working from home, the security mechanisms that we have or that we had that would traditionally protect them when they are connected onto our networks were not there anymore. I mean, employees were now working remotely using their home networks that don't have firewalls, that don't have intrusion detection systems and prevention systems. And employees in some instances were forced to utilize their personal devices, which essentially lacked the enterprise-grade security that you would normally get when you connected people into the networks. I mean, we had employees even using their personal cloud applications to share work data. I remember one of those rude awakenings for some of the organizations that I was doing training at the time for, where employees sharing data using their own personal Google Drives, their own WhatsApps, their own Dropboxes, and so on and so forth. And that meant, ladies and gentlemen, that the IT teams had no visibility into what data was being shared externally. And cyber criminals took advantage of this, because they also then started, I remember one of the biggest things was spreading fake emails that claimed to be from organizations like the World Health Organizations, that claimed to be from our own government agencies, and they were trying to trick users into clicking malicious links and so on and so forth. So COVID, ladies and gentlemen, exposed a number of cybersecurity weaknesses for a lot of organizations, but at the same time, it also accelerated the adoption of modern security strategies. And one of those security strategies is something called the zero trust methodology. Now, we are going to be learning about this zero trust methodology in the SC300 course. But what it is essentially, in a nutshell, this is basically a security model that assumes that the breach is inevitable for every single device in your organizations. So we assume that we are already breached, or the breach is a highly possibility. And as such, with a zero trust methodology, we are employing strict verifications for our users, for our devices, as well as any access request. So instead of trusting like we used to previously, once a user came in and connected to a network, automatically we trusted the user, we trusted the device because they are sitting behind our devices. So instead of trusting those users or devices by default, like we would do in a classic approach, zero trust methodology continuously verifies the identities of the users, the identities of the devices, but also it continuously monitors and assess the device compliance as well, to make sure that the device is in compliant with the different rules and policies that we made for that device to connect to our environment. So zero trust methodology, very, very important. So the SC300 course focuses on how do we implement and manage identity and access management, which is a core component of the zero trust methodology. Ideally, we want to make sure that we verify explicitly. And what that means is that we always authenticate and authorize your users and devices based on multiple signals. This is what you are going to be learning when you come onto this course. You're going to learn how do you implement multi-factor authentication, which enforces that verification explicitly. You are going to learn how to do conditional access policies, where we are looking at before any user can access our organizational confidential data, we look at the device compliant. Is that device up to date in terms of the updates? Does it have an antivirus running? But also, when last was the antivirus scan done on that particular device? We'll look at the location of the device. We'll look at the risk levels. So all of those are part and parcel of what we call conditional access policies. So you're going to be learning about that in order to implement zero trust. And also what you can learn about is things like your passwordless authentication, where we use your Windows Hello, your Microsoft Authenticator apps, and so on and so forth to implement the zero trust methodology. So this is very, very important for the SC300 course. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, the course that I want to focus on, although this is quite a senior level certification again, very, very important. This is the Cybersecurity Architect. Now, this is a much more senior certification that is designed for your cybersecurity leaders, your enterprise architects, your security strategists, and so on and so forth. So this is more focused on designing and implementing your enterprise cybersecurity strategies that obviously align with your business and compliance requirements. So specifically for the South African government, this certification is quite crucial because it will equip our personnel with the skills that are needed to protect our national infrastructure, our sensitive data, as well as implementing modern security frameworks like your zero trust that we already spoken about in the previous lesson. So what should you look forward to when you are attending this particular course? Well, like I already mentioned, this is more focused for your high-level personnel. But more importantly, this particular course focuses on a number of critical aspects. One of those is, like I already mentioned, your zero trust architecture implementation, whereby we want to make sure that our government employees, as I already know that there are still government employees and colleagues that are working from home, we want to make sure that those colleagues can be able to work remotely, but as they work remotely, they can access systems using multi-factor authentication, and we ensure that their devices go through things like your compliance checks and so on and so forth. We can also, through the cybersecurity architect course, ensure that our employees with access to critical databases undergo continuous verifications based on the behavioral analytics of the different tools that we are utilizing in our organizations. I mean, Microsoft Defender for Identity in particular is capable of detecting any unusual activities and as well as flagging any suspicious logins to your environment. So we can be able to utilize things like Microsoft Defender for Identity to be able to do that. But also through this particular course, we can be able to protect or learn how to protect our critical infrastructure, whether it's water, energy, or transport. We are able to do the zero trust segmentation, where we ensure that a compromised IT system in one department doesn't and cannot spread to another. So we utilize Sentinel, like I already mentioned. Sentinel is very, very important for real-time threats and automatically isolating the affected systems as well. One of the most important things that you're going to learn through this course as well is around the security best practices and priorities. A lot of us as organizations, including government institutions, we must always comply with national and international cybersecurity regulations. Specifically, if you look at government, we focus on, when you are in this particular course and you are learning under, or rather you are focusing on the security best practices and priorities, we focus on things like the POPI Act within this particular course. We focus on the ISO 27001. We focus on the NIST cybersecurity framework, and so on and so forth. And all of these are important because a lot of times non-compliance, not even a lot of times, but non-compliance with the different standards and frameworks can lead to legal consequences and financial penalties. So what we try and teach within this course is to teach more about the compliance with the different frameworks, with the different legislations, with the different standards. And we do this because lack of security compliance, not only does it lead to legal consequences and financial penalties, but it also exposes the citizens' data to breaches that may be perpetuated by cyber criminals and hackers out there. So again, as government, it is important that we always ensure trust and transparency in handling sensitive information. I mean, I'm going to talk about it in the next slide, but one of the most important things that we learn about in this particular course is something called the Microsoft Purview. So Microsoft Purview is basically one of the centers that we utilize in Microsoft to implement things like data classification as well as protection for our citizens. So for example, you can choose to implement data classifications and data labeling, whereby you say within the Microsoft Purview, you can basically create policies that label certain documents. So for example, if a document contains things like an ID number or an account number, or it contains something that similar to that, you can automatically classify that document and label it as confidential or whatever the case may be. You can also be able to learn through this particular course under the best practices and priorities here. We can learn how to encrypt things like the public health records, how to encrypt text information, identity documents, and so on and so forth, in order to prevent data leaks. And also within this course, ladies and gentlemen, we can utilize through the cyber architect, we can utilize the Defender for Cloud to conduct risk assessments for cloud services that are utilized by government agencies. The idea here, when we are utilizing or when we are doing those risk assessments, we want to identify any high-risk applications. And then once we've identified those, we can then be able to implement the security policies to mitigate against the different type of threats that our organizations may be facing out there. We can also, within the Microsoft Purview, there's something called the Compliance Manager. So there is a number of compliance capabilities within the Cybersecurity Architect course where we can be able to monitor government departments' adherence to security frameworks. In fact, one of the nicest things about this compliance manager within the Microsoft Purview, we can generate compliance reports automatically so that we can see whether we meet the regulatory requirements or not. So this is very, very important if we want to make sure that our different government departments are in compliant with the different security frameworks that are out there, not only for the country, but also for the IT cybersecurity space in general. So, so those are some of the things that we are going to be learning about. There's also a threat modeling that we are going to be covering and risk assessment within this particular course. This is where we are going to help your organizations and your departments to identify, to prioritize, and mitigate against any risks before they can be exploited by the attackers. And this is important because as government in particular, we want to be able to anticipate any cyber threats before they happen. We want to reduce the attack surface by identifying weaknesses in our IT systems, but also we want to be able to ensure that critical assets are protected against any cyber threats that may be out there. One of the nice things about threat modeling, excuse me, especially for your e-government services, is that before maybe launching any online system, security systems or security teams within your organization can be able to conduct things like risk assessments using the Microsoft threat modeling tool. And through that risk assessment, they can be able to identify risks such as unauthorized access to data, if there is a possibility for that, things like your DDoS attack, and so on and so forth. There's also voting systems that we can be able to use within the Purview portal, where we are able to see exactly where our organization is. I'm going to show you in the next slide, but we are going to see what our organization is doing or where our organization is insofar as security is concerned. We can also be able to conduct, again, utilizing the threat modeling systems, help with conducting penetration tests on digital voting systems, maybe if we're implementing digital voting systems in the future for elections and so on and so forth. So there's a number of things that you can be able to do within this particular course, including, by the way, the incident response, where we can have, or we can learn about how do we have a coordinated response plan for cybersecurity incidents so that we can respond a lot more faster to minimize any financial and reputational damage and so on and so forth. So we can teach within this course your security teams on how to use Sentinel. We can also be able to use things like the Defender for Cloud apps to block malicious traffic, but also we can be able to teach the different government departments how to conduct a simulated cyber attack exercise just to test the incident response plans that your institutions have and measure the response times and improve the security overall. So if you go into, ladies and gentlemen, the Microsoft purview, this is basically what you're going to see. So you will see something similar to this, where you get your compliance score. But not only do you get the compliance score, this is the compliance score is specifically for your tenancy in Microsoft. Not only does Microsoft gives you that compliance score within the compliance manager in the purview, it will also, more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, give you remediated action. So it will give you remediated recommendations to say, this is where you can be able to improve if you want to be able to improve, or if you want to improve this score that we have here. So if I go back into my, just want to give you a quick view of what that looks like. So if you go to the Microsoft purview, you will see there's a number of solutions here. You've got audit, you've got compliance, alert, so where you can be able to generate or create policies that generate alerts if something happens that's not in compliant with the policies that you've created within your environment. You want to make sure that the appropriate teams are alerted and they're able to respond to accordingly. There's things like the compliance manager that I've spoken about a little bit earlier onwards. There's the communication compliance. There's the e-discovery, where we can be able to, if let's say our organization is going through litigation or something similar to that, we can be able to use e-discovery to put emails under, or mailboxes under things like legal holds and so on and so forth. And we can be able to preserve the evidence or the data that is on those mailboxes, on the SharePoint sites, on OneDrives, on Teams, and so on and so forth. And that can be presented to the court of laws, and it can be accepted as evidence right away directly from this environment here. You also have things like information barriers, which my colleague Peter touched on a little bit onwards here. So this is where we can be able to, again, if this is applicable to your environment, where you want to prevent things like insider trading, you can ensure that departments that, or rather people that work for the same department, but they sit in different teams, or maybe there's IT and finance. You want to make sure that although IT and finance are sitting in the same organization, they work for the same government department, but they are not able to communicate with each other. You can be able to implement that through things like information barriers. So all of this, ladies and gentlemen, you are able to learn when you attend some of these important Microsoft courses, in particular when you do the SC 200, SC 300, as well as the SC 100. And in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say that the cybersecurity overall is a shared responsibility. So not only is cybersecurity a responsibility of the government, it is also a responsibility of the private sector. So overall, we need to make sure that as a country, we invest in the skills that are very, very important. We invest in the technology. We invest in the policies, obviously, especially when you look at the government. We invest in the skills, the technology, and the policies to safeguard our national interests. And more importantly, for the government and for organizations out there, it is important that they do the cybersecurity audits. This is where they can use multiple different types of Microsoft tools to identify gaps in their organizations. And not only that, once you've identified those gaps, it is important to partner with an organization like Microsoft to deliver some of this, some of these trainings. So if you look at what Microsoft is providing in terms of the solutions, in terms of the systems, in terms of the tools that we can be able to use in our organizations to protect our organizations, companies like us as NetCampus are obviously at the forefront of making sure that we help organizations like yours to be able to protect yourself by providing training throughout different types of systems that are already spoken about, different applications and tools. And not only that, I mean, as NetCampus, we are obviously a Microsoft Learning Partner Solutions, and we do provide the accredited and official Microsoft curriculum. So when you are attending some of these courses that we do provide, ladies and gentlemen, we give you access to an environment, a cloud environment, whereby you can be able to simulate even some of the threats that we're talking about. So if we say that within Sentinel, you can be able to do proactive threat hunting, we have an environment, we have a labs environment in our training where you can be able to simulate this proactive threat hunting without necessarily impacting your physical live environment. We require you to not use any of your login credentials. We have access to an environment where you can be able to pretty much learn in a safe environment where you can break, you can play around, you can test everything out before you essentially go back into environment. And more importantly, us as organizations, whether it's the government or the private sector, it is important to foster a security culture whereby our staff is continuously trained. It is continuously going through not only these highly technical courses, because not everyone is going to go through these technical courses, but you want to go through cybersecurity awareness courses for more of your users that may not necessarily be responsible for managing the security infrastructure in your organization. So the training of that staff is very important. The enforcement of the different type of security policies is extremely important, ladies and gentlemen. And lastly, from my side, I just want to say that a secure government is a trusted government, and as the private sector, as training institutions and organizations like Microsoft, we and the government, we need to all work together in building a South Africa that's quite cyber resilience and making sure that we protect our national interests. And that is the end of my presentation, ladies and gentlemen, and I thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Silo, and good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you so much to Microsoft as well, and also to Peter as well, for embarking us on this journey with us. And also thank you to DJ Mkhonazi for actually enabling us and opening that space for us to understand what is really happening. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've noticed that it is indeed that time we should embrace digital transformation, and we're seeing the importance of AI and also the importance of really getting more informed about the cybersecurity, because all the technologies that are requiring data processing, we need to protect. So we need to actually enable ourselves to keep on learning. That is why NSG actually is here to make sure that we keep on learning together and we go in this path together, all of us, to make sure we equip you with the digital skills and also partners with the different OEMs to ensure that everybody is aligned and no one is left behind. With that being said, thank you so much. I know it's been long 4 hours, but if there are any people that are having any questions, please feel free to also email us and then we will return back to you. However, we will also have other series of sessions of this caliber and more practically, and then we would want some engagement so that we can be able to actually align with you and get to have what are your concerns from your side. With that being said, thank you so much.